Welcome to the Biscuit Book Club on Joy 620 WRJZ, featuring Marcy and Shelley. Today, conversation will build you up in the faith and encourage you to do what God has called you to do. Brought to you by Simplify Hauling. And now, let's go to the studio with Marcy.
Welcome to the Biscuit Book Club. We're serving up stories with Southern charm. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Marcy, so grab your cup of coffee, or right now, Shelley, it is so hot, I would have to say, if it's not iced coffee, it maybe, grab a snow cone, okay, we're just going to drop it with that. Grab a snow cone and make yourself at home.
Awesome. Well, today we are talking about Jolina Petersheim. I hope I said her last name right. I meant to ask her. But she was one of the first people to encourage me in my writing. I didn't know any other writers. And a friend of ours in Kentucky connected us by email. And from there, we just started talking, and Jolina was just always so encouraging to me, always gave me good advice. And she's a lot younger than I am. I could probably be her mother, to be honest. But she was just encouraging to me, and I just wanted to introduce you to her, you and her, Marcy. And she is a best-selling author, and she loves, I'll just say this, she writes beautifully. You know, some people, I think it's really a talent that they just write beautiful prose. Even her Instagram post is always just like beautiful writing. And I'm like, why can't I do that? But she has 5 published novels, and she's been on best-selling lists. And her husband have 4 daughters, and she calls herself a modern marmy. Sorry. That they live in Chattanooga area, and they do, she calls it hobby homesteading in the mountains of Tennessee. So let's just give her a call, Marcy, and
okay, well,
introduce you to
and I actually, when you said that she was going to be coming on the show, and you've talked so much about her in such a great light, and so I actually looked up some of her books, and I downloaded some of there's one that is How the Light Gets In, and they had some sample readers. So I was taking a little bit of a road trip, and so I downloaded that, and that was really enjoyable. I enjoyed, it's always nice to get a good recommendation, but I think this is something that you and I have talked about a little bit as far as write what you know, write where you're at.
Yes.
And so for you, Shelley, you are writing Southern fiction, because that's, even though you're, I don't know, maybe you're Southern Alaska now, but you are from the South. So I love that Jolina probably could speak into that so well, because that's really where she writes from. She writes from the Mennonite and Brethren background, and then she puts that into her books. I was really interested. I was trying to check it out from the library, but I guess I'm just not that tech savvy because I couldn't figure it out. But I really wanted to do the midwife, the Amish. Her covers are just absolutely stunning. So yeah.
Yes.
So could you? I'm ready. I'm ready to talk to this.
Yeah, let's give her a call.
Yeah. It's awesome, Mama. Mama of 4. Yeah.
Modern
4 girls.
Marmy.
So would she be a grandmammy? Grandmarmy? Wouldn't she be grandmarmy?
Hello.
Hey, Jolina. Welcome to the Biscuit Book Club.
Hi, Shelley. It's nice to talk to you both today.
Thank you so much. We are so excited that you're on the show today, because we really do have a lot of questions about your books, about your writing, about your I guess I'm a hobby homestead too, because I do live at Hobby Lobby, so I don't know if that counts or not, but if so, I guess I'm a hobby. Yeah. So anyway, we're looking forward to visiting with you today.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
So I guess I had a little bit of a question. I have been reading some of the stuff that you've written, and I did notice that there was a little, you basically write one book every 5 years, 4 years, would you say?
It's varied. It's slowed down since I've had more children. I started out 6 months, then 1 year, then like a year and a half, then 2 years. And it's just progressively gotten a little slower since I've had a daughter about the same time as I published a book. But it's been a fun journey too. My last book was actually published in 2019.
Okay.
And I've written 2 then.
Okay, that's great. So when you are publishing a book and having a baby, it's kind of like having twins then.
Yeah.
Only
Your real baby and your book baby.
Yeah.
Yes. You have to launch a book to the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I was so fascinated about what I had read, so I'd love to hear more about that, how you were researching your book, and then you came across like an article that kind of inspired you with your family stuff. And I have to say that's some of my favorite, like when you hear something about family or an article that sparks something, and you're like, wait a second. I remember asking my aunt, hey, what do we have, especially back in the day, they never talked about anything medical. Like that was such a taboo, topic. And I said, I would love to know what kind of weird, if we have any medical history. And she just was like, well, our family is the first ones to have a successful pig aorta transplant.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, well, so you never know what you're going to find and how it ties into your family. So what is it, or can you talk about it yet? But what kind of an article did you find that sparked some interest in what you're working on now?
What I'm working on now, so I don't want to dive too deeply into that. But it was an article I found while totally researching another book. And it involved, I realized over the years, there's always a thread of usually a woman who's kind of an outcast in society, kind of ostracized. And so it kind of delves into that in a home for fallen women. And this one woman escaped. And that's historically accurate. She escapes in a really unusual way, and she's never heard or seen from again. And it kind of dovetailed with some personal family history about where the Mennonites and Brethren in my family and in my husband's family, he also has the same background. They would take in children from the city and host them over the summer. And so these two stories kind of started weaving together in my mind, and it just blended beautifully. And so that's what I'm like 12 chapters in, so I'm not giving too many overt details, but really loving the story and looking forward to seeing where it goes. And the best thing is I know where it's going to go. Like sometimes you don't always know where a story's going to go, but this one I do. So that's always a relief.
That's great.
Yes. And what about The Outcast? I know you can talk about that one because it's out in the world. It won numerous awards. And can you share a little bit about how that book came to be?
Yes. So I was actually working on Southern fiction, and I had, written a novel, and I sent it out to some beta readers. 2 liked it, 2 didn't. So I was kind of stumped and where do I go from here? And I remember we were standing in my in-laws' kitchen, their kitchen, and my mother-in-law was talking about this pretty much bishop in the family line who had an affair with his sister-in-law, and she conceived, and he hid it. They both hid it from the world until that child came down with the same genetic abnormality that he had and his family line had. So everything came out because there was no hiding it. It was very rare kidney disease. And from that, I was like, wow, that is a story. And from that, The Outcast was birthed. And, my best friend at the time was not my best friend at the time, but at the time my best friend was going through a bone marrow transplant. And I was with her at Vanderbilt and got to watch it kind of unfold. And so I started researching, if you have twins and they have children sired by the same father, are their children, is their DNA the same as a sibling? And it is. So then it kind of just the story started building itself. And I wrote it in 6 months. I was expecting my firstborn daughter, who's now 13. And I wrote it as my belly started to expand, the story started to expand. So it was really just a beautiful time. One of my favorite times to ever write a novel. Because I didn't know what I was doing. There was no pressure. It was just pure creativity and in so many different facets of my life.
I love that.
And because you're a novel writer, did you always start off as novel writing, or did you write short stories, or what did you grow up writing?
Well, even as a young girl, like 8 years old, I wanted to be a novelist. I loved the Anne of Green Gables series, and Anne was a big inspiration from the country like I was, and, went to Redmond College and would get into scrapes. And so I just really identified with her and was like, well, I want to go to college. I want to be a writer. But when I went to college, I studied journalism. And then as I got involved in the newspaper, I would get upset because they'd lop off words. And back then it was inverted pyramid style, where, the best information is at the top, and then you can kind of add details later, and then they can lop that off at the bottom if they need to make room for more articles. And that just upset me because every word I had thought over and labored over, and then it just gets lopped before it's put into print. And I was like, man, I don't know. I kind of want to be able to be more descriptive. And I started thinking more about, expanding into novel writing again. So I added an English major with a creative writing emphasis, and I really loved both the communication art department and the English department because one kind of streamlined my very descriptive writing, and one kind of introduced me to some good literature. So I feel like it was the best of both worlds, and I had some wonderful professors. That was in Kentucky, University of the Cumberland.
Is that, Shelley, so how far away from where you grew up is that?
I grew up in London, but my husband grew up in Williamsburg, and that's where the school is, and my sons actually went there to college as well.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful campus.
So I'm a newspaper girl, so that's how I kind of cut my teeth on writing. And I have to say, Jolina, yes, that part, you have to be so careful because your name is on it. So if it's a bad story, people will be like, what was she thinking? So I know for me, I started doing small paragraphs, and I'd put a parentheses around it and just say easy to omit. So that it was, so that they would keep my ending intact, because you only have to have that done like once, and you're like, yeah, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
But do you now? Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Shelley.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna, Jolene, I've been following you for quite a few years now, and every time I see a picture on Instagram or Facebook with you and your beautiful family, I think about what you and your husband went through early in your marriage, and would you be comfortable sharing a little bit about that story, what you went through, and just how God was faithful in that?
Oh, absolutely. So we moved from Tennessee to Wisconsin in 2014, and I had a 2-year-old and an 8-week-old daughter, and we went out there, and 8 weeks later, my husband was sent by ambulance to a larger hospital to be evaluated to have a brain tumor removed. And it was all very sudden. They called it emergency surgery, even though it took place the next morning, just because it had to be done so quickly. And, we had a little solar-powered farmstead on the ridge in Wisconsin. It was blowing cold, one of the coldest winters, I think since the early 1900s. And, these 2 little girls that I'm trying to keep the fire going, and my husband had infection after surgery, and just all of these things. And so just really trying to see God in that hard time. I remember he and I looking at each other across the table, and we both had tears in our eyes. Our girls were sick, and it's just cold, and his future's uncertain, our future's uncertain. And he just looked at me and was like, I'm so sorry life is so hard. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. But then that night, he slept through the night. My newborn daughter, who never slept through the night, she slept through the night. And that night was even a turning point for us. And I remember before we did go to bed, I just looked out into the snowy darkness, and I'm like, you've got to meet us here. And I'm just praying desperately, you've got to meet us here. It was just such a hard, dark moment. And God did show up, because sometimes we just needed sleep. We hadn't slept deeply since the surgery, and, all these unknowns, and just our little girls, and they had croup. I mean, there's just so many different variables. And the next morning, it just felt like the sun was shining, even though it was still cold outside. And it really was a turning point for us in every way. And he did have to have a second surgery in 2019. But I really believe the past 10 years have just solidified our love as a family and our gratitude for each day that we get to live that's normal. And I mean, he's doing fantastically well. He has no side effects. It was benign the whole way through, just a rare tumor that was blood-based. And we live in constant gratitude and awareness that each day is a gift. And so it allows you to kind of keep the dross off of the everyday and just allows you to see the magic of ordinary moments. For that, I'm really grateful.
Yes, I love that. And did that inspire How the Light Gets In? Did that story? Yeah, that's what I thought.
It did.
That.
I mean, not verbatim because it's a modern retelling of Ruth, but just the idea of a woman of a foreign area with 2 children where she didn't really know anybody, didn't feel she fit in, like just trying to examine her place in the world, how creativity was going to come into it because she was an artist, and just kind of rebuilding life again, and then having the big twist where what if her husband isn't actually deceased? What if he comes back? Like, does she want to rebuild her life with him or stick to what she's built on her own? Because their marriage was rocky before all of that happened. And so, it wasn't verbatim because my husband and I were strong in our marriage before all that happened. But just really wanting to pair on the foundation of marriage and what makes it work. And I always love to examine community in all of my novels, like the large community of, like in The Outcast, you have the community there, you have how that all evolves. And then in How the Light Gets In, it's more the community of marriage and just how each word is either a brick that builds or is being torn down. And I tell my girls that all the time, like, be kinder than you need to be. Like, it doesn't take, and that's something I'm, like, even as sisters, even as husband and wife, like, just be kinder than you need to be. It costs nothing, but it just makes the house a lot more enjoyable to be in.
Yes, I love that.
That what a great thing to instill in your kids too. And you have, I noticed this because I knew that you were going to be on here today, and I didn't want to just show up to the party empty-handed. And so, but I noticed that your girls, you just dropped them off with their cousins. So what a great thing to add in. When you add, like, we have our grandkids right now from California are visiting for 2 weeks. So, like, last night we had all 7 of our grandkids together. 2 of them, 2 extra ones spent the night. So it has been a week of swimming and snow cones and just a lot of fun. But, there have been a couple times where it's like somebody chased somebody with a stag beetle and that upset them. And then somebody else did something and rough housing and stuff like that. So, but I love that thought of be kinder than you need to be. And just that whole thought of how are we training the next generation, especially in a day with so much digital stuff, so much digital information, but how do we reinforce those things that will be lifelong? I just love that.
Yes. That's... Go ahead, Marcy.
Oh, I was just going to ask, how are you doing now with just one at home that with the other ones gone? Is the house so quiet?
It is so quiet. It's amazing how, like, I don't run the dishwasher. Like, I haven't put in a load of laundry. Like, just to keep up with 4 children, it's like a load of laundry a day. You run the dishwasher once a day, and it's just so quiet. And I was thinking this morning, like, when I had one home, I was so desperate for a break. And now I have 4. One feels like a break, So it's just your capacity for chaos increases with the more children you have.
Yeah, I agree. And I was I was having to look for a picture, and I am not, we have 6 children, and so I have these rough totes of photos. So, but our 2 boys married only children. So they have our one daughter-in-law, her parents had this library of well-documented archival notebooks of everything that she did for children. And then I have these rough totes full of these loose photos.
Yeah, me too.
I'm like, I feel like a total failure. But I have to say, I was looking for this one picture, and it was like a time capsule. And it's like, this was you with your great-grand. And then I brought up one of the rough totes because I just knew 4 would be overwhelming. And but the kids going through it, and then just seeing how fast the passage of time goes. Like you said, you know, now you started writing when you were pregnant with your first, but now those older 3 are going away. And I love what you wrote about the bird's nest, because as a mom whose kids are gone now, and then now the grandkids are coming back, just the passage of time happens so quickly. And unless you are making, like I just love what you said as far as, you know, seeing the world through through the lens of gratitude, because it's so quick and then it's over. And pretty soon you're looking at these baby pictures and you're like, how did that happen? How did it happen that my grandkids look just like my kids, but I was just pregnant? I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
And Jolina had 3, and then how long before you had your new baby? The latest?
There was a gap.
Yeah.
Yes, we had gotten rid of all of the, you know, baby paraphernalia. There was no high chair anymore, no car seat. And even though we had girls before, you know, by the time 5 years goes by, like, those clothes are not worth anything. And so we had to boot the whole system, but she's such a joy. And it's what I love the most is my older girls getting to kind of practice motherhood on her. And she just, like, my one daughter, she said, the toddler wanted to be in a carrier on my 10-year-old daughter's back. And the toddler's pretty big, so she's, like, hanging on like a little spider monkey while my daughter's, like, trying to roll tortillas. And it was just the cutest thing. Just to see their interaction is just phenomenal and such a joy.
Yeah. We have a 9-year-old grandson, and just seeing him with his 2-year-old cousin, just seeing how they interact with each other is really good. And I think it's such great training for being able to practice kindness, because when one is taking over, then it's nice that they could be like, okay, yeah, they are younger, you know. So anyway, what a great thing. And I'm sure helping with chores and all that stuff, you know, I think people don't realize that takes a lot of work to teach them how to do stuff.
Yeah, it's almost easier to do it yourself, but they have to learn.
Yeah.
And Jolina, what is your writing schedule with 4 young ones? How does that work for you?
How does that? Mostly during nap time. That's pretty much been my go-to the whole way through. Is just I made like quiet time mandatory for their sake and mine when they were little, and so we would go to the library in the morning, come back for lunch, and then from usually like 1 to 3, the one would take a nap, the one would have quiet time. And she didn't have to be quiet for 2 hours, but just, we'd look at books, I'd get her a snack. She would paint beside me with watercolors. I even had her, I remember, pick up acorns beneath the tree and put them in a tin bucket. And she just thought it was the best thing ever. And so just those sweet little moments. And it's amazing how, if you can just write a paragraph early in the morning before they wake up, then you can do another paragraph while they're sleeping. And then, it's really just consistency over a long duration of time at this stage of life. And I feel like that's how I've written for the past 10 years, is just more showing up in the moment rather than having big chunks of time. I do try to have one good chunk a week, which is like 3 or 4 hours, like at a coffee shop, where I can just really get a jump free, and then that carries me throughout the week.
Awesome. And I don't think I mentioned, maybe I did, that you homeschool your children.
It's a hybrid program, so we started doing that after COVID. During COVID, we started doing, remote learning, and while we did that, I was like, you know what, this is I enjoy this. I was so surprised because I never saw myself as being a homeschool mom. And then the next year, there was an opportunity to join a hybrid program, which is 2 days at school, 2 days at home, and then we are also part of like an art program on Fridays. And we just love it because the girls have accountability teachers and to their peers, and they have, social polishing when they're at school, and yet they also get to be together as sisters. And so there's just the best of both, and we really, really love it.
I love that. And Jolina, where where can we find you on? Where can our listeners find you on online?
I have a website, JolinaPetersheim.com. I do a Substack under Modern Marmy. That's MARMEE. And I'm on Instagram, Jolina Petersheim author, Facebook, Jolina Petersheim. You just type in author. So my last name is Sheim, Petersheim. It's all one word. I've had people say Peter, but and so that's just you find me. It's a unique last name, and so sometimes that's a benefit because then there are not too many of us.
Yeah.
And I said it wrong. Sorry. But I also didn't know about your Substack, so that's awesome. I'll check that out.
And that's the one that's now. What is Marmy? Is that a Mennonite Brethren term, or that's a different one?
No. So Little Women in the book Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. They called her Marmy, and she had 4 little girls, and it's one of my favorite books, movies. Like I love the 1992 version with Winona Ryder and Susan Sarandon, and I love how they're first, they're all gathered around the first reading a letter from Father in the beginning, and just the intimacy they exchange as a family and how they still get in scrapes as a family, and yet they're always pulled together. And I'm not modern Marmy. I mean, I'm not there yet because Marmy is so full of deep wisdom and patience, and that's who I strive to be. So, I'm putting that out there as like a prophecy of who I want to become.
Yeah, well, Marmy wasn't all, she didn't start off as Marmy. She was a work in progress, so.
Well, thank you, Jolina, for being on the show. We've really enjoyed it, get to know you a little more, and we'll be following along and excited to see your next book coming out. And
if you don't have somebody's book, I just encourage people, go to the library and ask them to order it. So Where the Light Comes In.
Yes.
Anyway.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And hug those girls.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us for the Biscuit Book Club. I'm Marcy with Shelley, and we've enjoyed visiting with Jolina Petersheim.
Until then, keep reading and keep it cozy, y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's Biscuit Book Club with Marcy and Shelley. Be listening next week at the same time for great encouragement and a challenge for what God has for your life on the Biscuit Book Club on Joy 620 WRJZ.